Texaco's contract with Ecuador ended in 1992, but the tragic legacy remains. And Petroecuador, Ecuador's national oil company, and other companies still operate the old fields and continue to incrementally expand oil exploration and production into new areas. Many water resources that once provided the Guarani with safe water, protein, tools like piranha teeth, and much more have been lost, and the healthy resources that remain are at risk. In addition to violently disrupting forest people's way of life and reducing their territories, oil development by Texaco and other companies in the western Amazon is making people poor by damaging natural resources that provide them with reliable, self-reliant, and sustainable sources of food, water, medicine, and shelter. In the headwaters of an ecosystem that's world-renowned for its wealth of biodiversity and is said to have 20 to 25% of the world's flowing fresh water, many families no longer have clean water or enough food. And I should add that in addition to impacts on the ground, the operations, Texaco and Petroecuador's operations have left a legacy of costly and time-consuming legal conflicts and litigation for Texaco and its new owner Chevron, and also for the government of Ecuador. Now, before I close, I'd like to say something about conservation and management of natural resources. Although some contacted Guarani now choose to live in towns or near roads, many still live in the forest in harmony with the rainforests, the giving rainforests. That's their source of life. At least one group, the Taigari Taramonani, has continued to resist efforts by outsiders to contact them and live in voluntary isolation in the forest. But they're in danger of disappearing because of conflicts and loss of resources related to the encroaching oil development, the encroaching settlement of their lands, and more recently, due to violent encounters with loggers who used the road that Texaco built after the Guarani were displaced to enter and remove wood from the area. Both the uncontacted group and the most traditional of the contacted Guarani live in and around a protected area known as the Intangible Zone. The Intangible Zone is a spectacular refuge of intact forests. It spans nearly 3,000 square miles. It was designated by the government as a conservation area, off limits to oil extraction, mining, and logging. And this was done in response to national and international pressure to protect the uncontacted group. The designation is important because Ecuador permits and even promotes oil development in other protected areas, including national parks, and in lands that are titled to indigenous peoples without their consent. But several oil blocks overlap with the Intangible Zone, so the protection is not yet secure. The uncontacted band are still defending the area and what remains of their territory with spears, and there was the last violent contact was in August, when they speared 3 colonists to death on a new road that was being built near an oil well at the edge of the forest. But the contacted Guarani are trying to find new ways to defend the forest, including working with me. They understand that their people have entered a process of rapid change, external pressures, and loss of territory and natural resources that could lead to their extinction, and that to defend Guarani culture, they have to protect the forest. And this is an exciting development that gives me hope. The decision by the Guarani who live in the forests of Yasuni to organize themselves to protect the forests and the right of their uncontacted neighbors to be left alone is the best hope for sustainable conservation in the Amazon and long-term protection of water and other resources. At least that's what I think. But a lot of people working on conservation projects and programs in government, international organizations, including UN agencies and NGOs, seem locked into the old paradigm that outsiders are the conservation experts and know best how to manage natural resources. And so this approach is creating new conflicts and threats to the indigenous peoples who are defending and managing their resources. The Waorani and Yasuni appreciate that so many people want to protect the rainforest that's their home, but they're concerned because so many people want to make decisions about Yasuni without taking them and their rights into account. And so with that in mind, I'd like to close by answering the question that Elaine posed to the first panel yesterday: what change can make the biggest difference? My answer in the sort of big picture, long-term answer, is that we really need to stop using fossil fuels. This is making all of us actors in the Amazon. And in the meanwhile, when new oil and gas activities go forward, governments and the private sector should recognize and apply the principle of free, prior, and informed consent when their operations go forward in indigenous territories. When it comes to sustainable development, conservation, and resource management in indigenous lands, we need to remember that the indigenous peoples are the experts. And when outsiders get involved in those initiatives, we too need to recognize and respect the principle of free, prior, and informed consent by grassroots communities. Thank you. I hope I didn't go too long.
No, you were just right on time. You were just right on time. Thank you, Professor Kimerling, very much. We'll take one or two quick questions if anybody has them. Otherwise, we'll adjourn. I guess the panel did a fabulous job in terms of explaining everything. Thank you very much.